All right, guys, here we are. This is another episode of the East Van podcast. Today, we're going to be talking to local musician, independent producer, East Van icon, Chris Peterson. You may know his name and you may know him from his work with Frontline Assembly, Decree, Unit 187, The Mysterons, Will. Other bands he's worked with are Delirium, Skinny Puppy, Download, Noise Unit, the list goes on and on. I can be here all day talking about how many bands he's worked with and been in and played with. Let's go in and talk to the man himself and find out what's what in East Van. Here we are, guys, with Chris Peterson. How you doing, Chris?
I'm great, thanks. How are you?
Pretty awesome. So, tell us what you've been doing lately.
Lately, I've been working my ass off on a band called Unit 187 and my own project called Decree. Both new albums soon to be finished this summer and released in the fall or New Year's, I hope.
Awesome. What is it, the same type of music that you usually do? The electronic, aggressive kind of stuff, is that the same kind of stuff that you're doing with these two new projects that you're working on?
No, I don't know what anyone's used to anyway with me, because I do stuff like the Mysterons and produced a band called the Fudge Packers as well, and so, you know, I don't know what people expect from me, but yeah, it's electronic and aggressive, but both those 187 and Decree albums are more a lot of guitar, and the marriage of electronics and organics is, especially with Decree, it's just insane how much field recording we've done and real drums and whatnot, so the lines are really blurred on that. It's its own beast.
We talked recently at Club 23 West over a couple tasty beverages about the state of the union, so to speak, in the music industry, and the gist of the conversation, from what I remember through the haze of alcohol, was I was asking you what your opinion is now that the digital age has come upon us, the internet is there, and artists are basically eliminating the middleman, which is the record industry, and they're taking the power back for themselves, and they're able to produce, release, and get their product to their fans via the internet. What's your take on that? Like, how do you feel as an independent local musician that has started out using the record industry, and now it's come around to this day and age where the internet is a viable tool to basically eliminate the industry itself? How do you feel? What are your thoughts on that whole process and everything of the internet and getting your shit out there?
Wow, that's a big, long conversation.
That is huge.
There's so many aspects to that, because you're talking to a guy who I was just looking at my first cassette that I put out, and it was in 1987, and I made 100 cassettes. My first band in high school was called the Resilient Stomachs, and it was with Vancouver punk rock legend Nick Polyuk of a band called Subverse, and we were also in the same class as Tom and Selmy from Slow and whatnot. But in those days, it's a funny little group of us in that class. But in those days, you know, you make a cassette, you know, or if you're lucky, you got enough money to get a little 7-inch vinyl or something. So, and now I'm looking at what people have available to them, and I really wish that was there then, because it's great for a startup, and I think some projects are best marketed that way because they're such niche things. But on the other hand, it's hard to, I mean, I still like the idea of putting some things out with a label for the sake of distribution and visibility. If you want to stand out, I still think you need the label, give you a push, get you on the road, and there's no substitute for being there in person and touring and gigging and constantly being in people's face. It's just a lottery anyway, you know. But for a band like Radiohead or someone like Nine Inch Nails or Marilyn Manson to turn around and say, yeah, I'm just going to sell this online, of course you can do that because you already have the fan base. How did you get the fan base? Through the record labels, you know, so, and gigging. They worked their asses off, let's not forget, too, and we're touring a long time before it really kicked in for these people. So the visible presence and whatnot, of course you can turn around and say, yeah, now I'm going to screw the record labels because I've got this X number of fans already. It's already there. But if you're Joe Schmo with a drum machine and a MySpace, yeah, you're going to be getting your friends and family, and that's about it. It won't grow until you get your ass out of your living room and off the fucking computer and go do some shows.
When I'm like, what are you working on? And you're like, this. Jesus Christ.
And I kept my day job, so yeah, it's pretty tiring too. So I want to be able to, just get a bit more comfortable pace to my life than what it has been. So maybe just like 3 projects at a time instead of 6 or 7. And I think the writing towards publishing side of things is important because with album sales and the whole independent versus being on a label thing in the air, there's still a lot of interest out there for music that's written solely for film application and whatnot, or commercials or documentaries.
Well, it's been great talking to you. For those of you watching, look out for Unit 187.
The album's going to be called Out for Blood. So far, that's our working title for the album, for that. And for Decree, the album's going to be called Fateless.
Excellent. Look out for Decree. Look out for Unit 187. I'm Jonny Vancouver. That was Chris Peterson for the East Van podcast. Thanks a lot for having us, man.
Thank you. Nice talking to you.
There you have it, guys. That was Chris Peterson, local independent producer, musician, programmer. He's got his hands in so many pies in the music scene here in East Van. And also, to boot, he's a great guy. That's an episode of the East Van podcast. Take care, guys. See you next time. And remember, East Van.